Hi, this is my showcase for the urban road generator tool I've made. I realize there's way too much to get through because it's my fourth take already, so I'll be really quick. The first thing we're going to check out is the driver profiles. So if we go to car types here, I've made 3 driver profiles which you can set the weighting for, which will kind of set the chance for how likely each driver is to spawn. So if we set the aggressive driver to 2, he'll be 2 times more likely to spawn. Then you can also set it to randomized, which randomizes the variables for you in like a safe range that I've set up. So you can have randomized drivers without doing much setup. Or you can customize it completely. For example, the aggressive driver has a higher max speed and min speed, and it checks less distance to its sides when it tries to overtake, so it's a bit more risky. And that can make it crash and do all sorts of things. So you can set up your own profiles, have as many as you want of them, and drivers will be generated according to their probability of spawning their weighting. And if you set the weighting to 0, they just won't spawn. Then you have the road generation. So there's kind of 3, I think, parts to that. The first part is just the road itself. You just drag it into the world, set its spline locations, generate more splines along it. If you want, you can make it loop. You can select all the spline points and change them to whatever you want. So make them linear and it'll still work perfectly. And we just move this here, and I hope we spawn in the right spot. Okay. Let's move this up a little bit. Right there. You'll see that we've made a road, and drivers spawn along it. Then we come to these slightly more advanced roads. There's a bunch of settings you can set on each road. So there's road spacing, how spaced each road is. So if you set it to more, it will be more spaced. 350 kind of makes a perfect link. Then you can set the road to 1-way or 2-way. You can set the car system type, but we'll get to that. Then you can set the material for it, its tiling to make sure it's aligned and tiles properly and looks good. You can set the obstacles, which are the things generated in the center of the roads. There's a bunch of settings for them, for example, which meshes you want to use, and it gets random meshes. You can set the seeds of the meshes to change their location or change their type and keep their location. There's 2 different seeds. You can set their rotation to be random or direct set. So if you want a road to have randomly generated bollards, for example, but you want them to all face in the same direction and kind of block the road, you can do that. And you can also set their collision, which works hand in hand with the physics of the physics vehicles that I'll also talk about later. Then we also have the decorations, which is another system. They are these kind of splines going along and in between each road. You can set their number as well, just like the road lanes. Just have 0 for one in the center, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can add them however you want. And same, let me just show you, change the lane number, so you can have 1, for example, lane, and then set the decoration number to 0. That'll be 0, 1, 2, and you'll be able to make a road like this. And it's really, really easy to adjust. Now there's a bit too much foliage in the middle, a bit too much obstacles, so we can set their number down to maybe 2000, 2, and if we just set the numbers the same, they'll just stick to 2000. And here I can showcase a few different roads that I've made. There's this one, which is kind of like a highway with some debris. There's this one, which is like a mega highway. And there's this one, which is kind of like a nice, elegant path that it probably takes to some sort of old-fashioned mansion or something like that. Yep. So that's the road generation. Then I'll go through the meshes. So the way the meshes work is that all of the generated meshes on the roads that are like the decorations and the obstacles, they use hierarchical static meshes, which I just add instances of, and it's I think the most efficient method of instancing meshes in Unreal Engine, so it's very, very good for performance. Then the actual road splines themselves are made of a custom C++ class that I made, which uses opposable mesh component, which is a skeletal mesh, and it allows you to modify the location or the transform of each bone in that road. So what I do is I just get the length of the road and kind of plot the bones evenly along that road, and it's also much more efficient than even Unreal's landscape road generation system. So it's also very good for performance. Now I'll showcase, so that's about it for the meshes. Then we have audio. So if we press play, we have procedural audio that scales in pitch with the speed of the car. So as it speeds up, you can hear the pitch go higher. Here you can see some of the car's functionality. If one car's a bit slow, it'll change lanes, and so on. There's also procedural VFX for the smoke coming out of the back of the car, which scales with speed, and also the tire shreds. They also spit out more scaling with speed and make it a bit more, make the rotation of them spin a bit faster, so it looks like they're flying out a bit more stronger. Yeah, so we have those two visual effects and audio, that one sound effect, which are procedural. Then there are two different car systems. There's one for interpolation and one for physics. So you've seen the physics a little bit, but I'll just showcase the interpolation quick. I decided to, initially I was making just the interpolation, but I wanted some interaction with the roads, so I added a physics system, which is actually much more advanced than interpolation. So interpolation is just cars going along the spline. You can't really interact with them. They still detect each other, and the AI works really well and has had a lot of polishing. But the physics is way more advanced, so I'll get to that. Yeah, so here we have a whole road system that I actually got my friend to design earlier, just for some testing and to see if we can find any bugs. Obviously he found a lot of bugs and I fixed all of them. So here we can see the cars in action. So there are intersections in the roads, and the cars go through the intersection in the same order that they arrived at them. If I go into this view, you can see that the cars procedurally generate a spline as they approach the intersection and turn according to that spline. Also, the cars use A-star pathfinding to avoid obstacles. So let's find one. Start again. Let's get it so we can see the splines. And here we can see the car's pathfinding. It'll generate a grid and find the optimal path around that grid back to the spline it wants to go to or go along. Like this, it'll slow down when it's doing it, and there's lots of values you can adjust. Yeah. For example, in the car types section where you set the different types of drivers you want, you can set the speed that it avoids obstacles at to be faster or slow. That's another one of the parameters there, but you can look through it and see for yourself. So here we got all of these systems, and it works very, very well. Oh, I froze for a second. Yeah, and all of this works seamlessly. You can have, for example, this is a one-way road. You can just change it however you want. So, in a sense, you can flip this with this. In the future, something I actually wanted to implement but didn't get enough time was just to add a toggle where you can flip roads. So here now it's all going the other way, and roads and the intersections will calculate by themselves and exclude the directions. It can't exclude the roads or the splines with the direction that the car cannot go in. Also happens procedurally. When you press run, it'll calculate each road's intersections and kind of set that, and the cars will follow that as they go through the world. Yep. Okay, well, I think we have a couple more minutes just to go into to show some of the blueprinting. So if I just show probably the most procedural thing there is, which is the roads, the main thing. Everything happens in a construction script, so as you change it in the world, it updates, and yeah, you can see everything happening in real time, so you can make changes to your road. So first we set some, set if the road is looping, then if the lanes is less than 2, we make sure it's set to one way, because if it's one lane, it can only be a one way. So it's just kind of like some debugging I was doing earlier. That was one of the errors I was having. Then we draw arrows depending on the road type. So if it's one way, it's drawing one arrow. If it's two way, it draws two arrows on the respective sides of that kind of road direction. Then we have the generates road splines, which makes all the splines for where the roads are and which the cars follow. First this clears everything, then we kind of initialize all the splines and copy the central spline over. Then we offset the splines with this calculation here, which is explained in my technical design document. Then we sort the splines because it was kind of muddled up from earlier, and we were on the two-way road, we reverse one side of the splines of this function here, and then we update the splines at the end. Then we generate the road meshes, which is my custom C++ class, this right here. Then we offset the bones along the spline with this code over there. Then we generate the road obstacles, which are the things in the middle of the road. And then we generate the road decorations, which have 3 components actually that didn't go over yet. It's kind of the final thing now. So one of the component is the connectors, which are the pillars you can see here. You can set them to lampposts, you can imagine, and stuff like that. Then the modules are the things in between. And along each module, you can generate props procedurally, which are these bushes you can see on the right. So I've picked 5 different bushes, and I've set for each module I want to generate between 10 and 20 of these bushes, and I can add offset and random rotation, and set a bunch of parameters and scale to make sure that it's looking pretty nice like this. And you can get lots of cool effects with this with all types of different systems and use cases. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you.